Good morning, MJ. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Justin. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Folks, this is Miss MJ Viglizzo. I always say your last name wrong. How do you say it?
Viglizzo. You said it right.
Viglizzo, I
You
got
got
it.
it. Yeah.
Okay, great. She's joining us today. She's a lender with All California Mortgage. She's been doing this since I was in kindergarten. So she has all the knowledge in the world, and she's been gracious enough to come here and share it with us. So, Miss MJ, today your topic for us is what?
What are the 5 biggest mistakes a buyer makes? What's the first mistake that you and I have talked about?
The first thing really that shopping for a house comes down to is knowing what you can afford before you start looking. And getting a good picture of your like where your finances really place you, right? You don't want to start looking at $1 million house when really you can afford a 700, or maybe you think you can afford a 700 and you can get $1 million, right?
Right.
So
you want to be prepared to get pre-approved to determine the actual purchase price and loan amount that you're going to qualify for as a buyer. Justin had said that. You want to have a good idea of what your monthly housing payment is going to be before you make an offer on a house. You need to make sure as the buyer that this is the payment budget that you were working in, or if it's not the payment budget that you were thinking, why isn't it? But going kind of to number 2, I want to jump off to the number 2 biggest mistake that I see is not knowing how much you as the buyer will need for down payment and closing costs before you start to search for your home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So for the first time buyer that's out there that hasn't been through the process before, right? They're going to look online, they're going to look at Zillow, right? And it's going to say, oh, your monthly payment is this. And you can read online, you're going to need 3.5% down for your FHA. And well, I'm pretty good at math, right? I want to buy a $600,000 house is 3.5%. That means you get 22,000 or whatever for the down payment. So besides the down payment, there's more cost into getting a home than just the down payment.
Right. There are closing costs. So as you're driving down the street and you see Old Republic title, Chicago title, Lawyers title, First American title, there's many different title companies. They're involved in the transaction as well. And they are a third neutral party. I don't want to go into too many details. If somebody has questions, they can come back to me. But you're going to have an appraisal done on the property. There's a cost to that. There are lender fees. Low down payment, you're setting up an account. You're kind of funding a savings account with the lender to pay your taxes and insurance when those bills come due. So, typically I would say your closing costs in our county would run about, on a low down payment, about 2% of your loan amount. I know you had asked me earlier today, we were talking on the phone, and you had asked me about, down payment assistance for closing costs. Are there programs out there for first-time buyers? Absolutely. There are programs out there for first-time buyers. Somebody has to meet certain qualifications. Again, I don't want to get into the qualifications here on this chat that we're having today. There's a lot of details to it, but if somebody is interested in finding out more about, are they eligible for down payment assistance or closing cost assistance, they can reach out to me. I know you're going to put up my contact information at the end of the video.
Number 3 thing for what buyers get wrong is not working with a great real estate agent.
Exactly.
So from the lender's perspective, right? Obviously, I talk every single day about why I'm the greatest realtor on earth, right? But from the lender's perspective, what is that important to you for?
we got a call, or I got a call, I think, and it was someone looking for financing. She had, I think, saw something online with you, and it was a listing, and she wasn't sure if she qualified. Now, this woman was single. She had purchased a home and sold a home previously. She had left the area, moved back to the area, and she didn't have a job. Do you remember that? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so we worked with her. And this is something that I think Justin was really fantastic, was he was supporting me through this process. And one of the things that we also found out, through kind of going through that pre-qual, pre-approval period with her, she didn't have down payment money, but we knew her parents were going to gift her the money for down payment. And so where Justin really came in was supporting me and her. The things that I said to her is, I mean, she was a professional. She's a scientist. She had no problem going out and finding a job right away, even though she had had a 2-year break in employment history. Right, Justin, remember this?
Yeah,
She
that
had
was
had
a really interesting interaction, and it was really cool to see. Like, I mean, as somebody who represents people, this is a person who bought a house, bought multiple houses, sold
Yep,
multiple houses. The reason she didn't
yep,
have a job was because she had equity to live on, right?
right, right,
Um, and she still hadn't had what I would call a good experience with the realtor, where she knew what was going on, where she knew she was being taken care of. Now I got a client for life, right? Which is great.
right, right. We both do.
But it was also one of those things where I know she had told me that because her financial situation was unique, right? Because she didn't
Mhm.
have a job, like people weren't listening to her.
Right. That's exactly my point. Is Justin saw past, the fact that she didn't have a job. And when I peeled the onion back with her, when we were talking about financing, we came up with such a great strategy that she found a job, she got into contract, I loved her parents. I drove back and forth to San Jose to visit with her parents during the transaction, because they were involved in the transaction, by gifting money to her for the down payment. Is they were very instrumental and very helpful, as was she. But Justin listened to what she needed. And that made a huge difference. I think we had her in her house probably within 8 to 9 weeks from our very first conversation with her.
So number four, and this actually kind of goes into this conversation about, you mentioned getting her in before interest rates went up.
Yeah, yeah.
Timing the market. Almost every week I have a conversation with somebody who says like, oh, I'm going to wait for the market to tank before
Right,
I buy a house, right?
right,
And nobody says like, well, I'm going to wait for Apple stock to tank before I buy Apple stock, right? I'm going to
right,
wait for.
right.
No one said that. And the real estate market, like as a whole, right? If you're an investor, if you're buying multiple properties, this conversation gets more nuanced. But if you're
Right.
just buying your home to live in, real estate is a game that the longer you play it, the more you win. That it's as simple as that, right? There's nuance to it, but the longer you wait to get in, that's going to give you less time to play, right? There may be
Right.
some awful time, but let's go back. Let's just kind of play this game, right?
Let's turn the clock back. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
let's
go
go
back
back to
in hindsight.
2008.
Okay.
Yeah, 2008, and house values have dropped to a third of what they were the year prior or whatever it was.
Right,
What
right.
was
We
it
had the
like?
housing bust.
Yeah, what was it like in the lending world
Okay,
to
so
get a home?
yeah, so let's frame this. There was a recession, there was a housing bust. The recession was really because of this housing bust, right? We had this general run up of prices. The lending products were, basically you could breathe on a mirror and you could get a loan for $1 million house if you had decent credit, right? So we ran up prices. There was a lot of weird stuff going on in the market. And all of a sudden, prices just dropped, right? We didn't expect it. Prices are dropping. Lenders are pulling out of the business. Investors are pulling out of the business. All of a sudden, we didn't even have money for people to buy the houses at this lowest point. There were no lenders. I remember having to call 2 or 3 people that were in contract that I'd been working with for months, preparing them to buy. They got into contract, fair pricing on houses. I had their loans pre-approved, due up to fund like in a week. Lenders call and say, we no longer have money. We don't have access to our credit lines. We can't lend to these borrowers. So we're having to shuffle and find new homes to put these loans to help these buyers. Now, it happened across the market. It was across the United States. And so that was the initial part of the housing crash. And credit became very, very tight, very tight. And we continued to see the foreclosures happen in the marketplace. We saw short sales happen in the marketplace. Some of the viewers today might have been in 6th grade at the time, high school, and remember living in a house that they owned and all of a sudden having to move in with their grandparents, but not really understanding why, but their parents lost their house because their parents lost their job. There were many things that happened in that recession period of 2008, 2010. But what did happen is prices stayed low because the inventory was high, right? There was tons. You walk down a street, every other house had a for sale sign in it. Is all of a sudden, as people started to get back to work, found their jobs, people who were essential workers, your grocery store employees, your gas station employees, all these buyers who were priced out of the market, all of a sudden came in and built up competition. Once money came back into the market, about the end of 2008, there was a lot of government intervention and it became easier and credit became a little bit easier. Again, we were at bottom, but it created competition. It created competition, and I started to see those essential workers no longer be able to afford to buy the homes. Then we saw kind of your next level, lower white collar, high blue collar workers like electricians, journeymen in the trades. They're high income earners. All of a sudden they're coming in and going, wow, I should be buying this house. It's next door to my mom's or whatever. And so it created this kind of crazy competition driving the houses prices up. We just experienced that again during the pandemic, right? People were working from home. We had people from the San Francisco Bay Area who've always wanted to live in Monterey County, but didn't want to make the commute to their office, working from home. Hey, I'm going to sell my home here. I'm going to buy in Monterey County. So we had this really unexpected surge again of all this competition going on and on and on and on. So our first-time home buyers got priced out of the market. So kind of coming back to this is waiting for the housing market to drop or interest rates to drop for that to be your time to buy. It's probably not going to happen. You want to buy in a market like we're in right now today. There's inventory and there's some buyers, but we don't have a frenzy, because once that frenzy starts, I see first-time buyers getting pushed out of the market. So don't wait. Don't wait. If you can afford to buy today, it's going to be a lot less stressful. You've got sellers who are willing to make a little bit of a concession, maybe fix some things that, after the house inspection is done. Justin will have a home inspection done on the home. Maybe there's a few things, maybe there's a gutter, along the eave that isn't properly installed. And, he may ask the seller to have that repaired, and they may say yes. I'm going back to pandemic to, a year and a half ago. That wouldn't have happened. They would have said, nope, you got to fix that yourself, Mr. Buyer. So again, this is a good time to buy.
So, yeah. But, okay. So the last point that you made was at the end of that was inspections.
Yep.
And I think this is a really important one. You have here is the number 5 mistake that home buyers make is not doing proper inspections. Why is that?
Well, first of all, they fall in love with their online photos and the staging. You know, the buyers today are very connected to technology. So the first place they begin to look is they, you know, look at Zillow, and then they put their information in Zillow or Redfin or Trulia or Realtor.com. There's multiple different sites, and even Instagram, right? They look on Instagram and they see this home and they go, oh my God, I love the way this house is decorated. Well, yeah, that's all good. That is really good. But this is the largest, probably the largest investment you're going to make in a lifetime is your house.
I really like that you put this one last because it brings together having a knowledgeable expert realtor, right? Knowing what you need for closing costs, all this kind of stuff. Like all of these things come together in this last one. Because when you start the buying process, in between when you get an accepted offer and when you buy the home, as a buyer, there's a bunch of different inspections that you can do, right?
Right.
But not all of them you necessarily should do. But also, you need a realtor who is going to always act in your best interest. And everyone always says that they do, but we'll take an interaction we're working on right now. There's a family that I'm working with who has a whole family of kids. They're moving into a house, and I walk in, I look at the building, and I go like, I'm pretty sure there's asbestos in the ceiling, right? And I just know this because I've been doing it for a while. I don't normally recommend doing an asbestos inspection. It's $800 today. Who knows what it's going to be next week.
Can I interrupt you for just a minute? There was a visual that Justin, you know, when he looked at the ceiling, there's a type of ceiling that sometimes can indicate the material that is blown up onto the ceiling that may indicate that there's asbestos in the ceiling. So go back to your inspection of $800 cost.
Yeah, so it costs $800 to do the inspection, right? And we find out that there's asbestos. Now, if you're a typical salesperson and you're not really interested in your client's best interest, you're going to do what's called a whole home inspection, which is $600-700. And they're going to go through and they're going to look at the whole home. They're not going to look at the asbestos. They're not going to call attention to it. They're not experts in it. They don't know, right? So if I just want to go along to get along, maybe I don't tell the family, right?
Right.
Maybe I don't have the knowledge in the first place to call it out. It could be either of those things. Right. But acting in your client's best interest, having the expert knowledge that, and you know, as soon as I saw it, I go like, this family needs to know that what they're buying. And this family, they're in love with the house. And it's hard to peel back the dream, right? And go, hey, I know you're in love with the house. You fell in love with the photos, right? But this is your kid's health. Right? This is what's at risk. So don't buy the house, but let's figure out where it's at. Let's see if we can renegotiate this or, you know, whatever it is that we can do. But knowing the facts about the property is more important than keeping the dream alive, because the dream will come back. Asbestos can be fixed, right? A problem with the home can be fixed, but you need to know it's there so that the dream doesn't turn into a nightmare and a money pit.
I'm at a wrap up. I don't have anything else to talk about today, Justin. Do you have anything else you want to kind of clip on?
I appreciate everyone sticking this far into the video. It's probably going to be a little bit of a long one, so thank you for sticking with us. But yes, I do want to give my endorsement for MJ. As a realtor, you meet a lot, you make a lot of connections, right? Out of necessity, if you're doing a good job at least. But MJ came to me because she came into my professional world, not because I met her doing something professional. She took great care of my wife with her first purchase. And I see the world through the lens of how well you treat my wife. And so because MJ, because I saw how she worked with my wife, that shaped how I viewed her as a professional, and is why, I do have other lenders that I might refer to for different things or what have you, but my go-to is MJ because I know how well she takes care of people. And because she took care of my wife, I know she's going to take care of other people.
Thank you, Justin. That means a lot to me. And I thank you for putting this presentation, webinar together today. Justin does a fantastic job. I love working with him. We communicate frequently. We're on the phone 2 or 3 times a week. And by the way, I love your wife too. She's awesome. I had worked with her. She was someone who, we did some long-term planning to get her into her first home. And she loves her home. So, really fantastic getting a chance to work with her. And thank you again for that nice testimonial on that, Justin. But, Justin takes really good care of his clients. He goes above and beyond every time. He stays in touch with his clients after the fact as well. He's a great negotiator. He came from an industry that he really understands the trades. So when he's looking at a house, he's looking not just at the staging of the house or how pretty it looks. He's getting down into, again, the minutia. He's looking to make sure this house is going to have good bones, good drainage, that you're not going to have problems after the close of escrow. And that's the kind of realtor that you want to work with, someone who's knowledgeable. And if he doesn't know, he's going to dig down and he's going to find out the answers for you. So again, Justin, thank you so much for having me today. Thank you to everybody who has watched the webinar or presentation today. And I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Justin, I think you're going to throw up my contact information. So if any of the viewers want to contact me direct, that's great. You guys can go ahead and contact me. He'll have, I think, my email, my cell number up for you.
Down in the description,
okay,
it'll
down
be
below.
down.
Okay, it'll be down below. And anyway, you guys all have a great day. I'm going to look forward to hearing from some of you guys soon.
All right, thank you. God bless.
Bye, Justin.